I spent $2 million on a brand new oceanfront villa because I believed I had finally earned some peace and quiet. I imagined calm mornings, long walks along the shore, and evenings where the only sound was the surf. That dream lasted exactly until my son-in-law found out about the house. My phone rang, and before I could even say hello, he launched straight in. He told me they were already on their way. 15 people. I needed to have beds ready, towels laid out, slippers available, and food stocked. They planned to stay for 3 weeks. Then he added that they would arrive in 40 minutes, so I had better hurry. He ended it by calling me an old man. His arrogance surged like a violent tide, and instead of arguing, I smiled to myself. In that moment, a plan began forming quietly in my mind, one that would eventually flip everything he assumed upside down. The sharp ringing of the phone had shattered the calm afternoon like glass breaking on concrete. I had been carefully unwrapping a crystal wine glass, setting it aside on the counter, when I reached for my phone. I assumed it might be a congratulatory call from a former colleague who had heard about my retirement. Outside the floor-to-ceiling kitchen windows, the Atlantic Ocean stretched endlessly, deep blue waves rolling onto the private stretch of sand below my new Florida villa. "Hello, old man. We are already driving to your place." Ethan's voice hit my ear like a blunt instrument. There was no greeting, no courtesy, just pure entitlement. He repeated that there would be 15 of them and ordered me to prepare everything: beds, towels, slippers, food, all of it. They planned to stay for 3 weeks. Then he reminded me again that they would arrive in 40 minutes and that I needed to move faster. My grip tightened around the phone. 40 years of engineering work, disciplined saving, and postponed comforts had led to this moment. I had bought this house as a reward for a lifetime of patience. Yet moving boxes still cluttered the marble countertops, and packing paper covered surfaces I had not even had time to claim as my own. "Ethan, hold on," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have not even fully moved in. The house is not ready for." "Listen," he cut in, his tone sharp and dismissive. "I do not care what you have going on right now. You have money, which means you have space. End of discussion." A warm ocean breeze drifted in through the open patio doors, carrying the scent of salt and freedom, but his words poisoned the air. I braced myself against the granite countertop, watching my knuckles turn white. "This is my first week here," I said. "There are boxes everywhere. I do not even have proper bedding set up for guests." "Figure it out," he snapped. "You are retired, right? What else do you have to do?" I could hear car engines roaring in the background. He told me that Laura had already packed the kids' things. His brother Caleb and Caleb's wife Hannah were bringing their group too. He described it as one big family reunion. Family reunion. The phrase twisted painfully in my chest. After everything I had done, everything I had given, this was how he viewed our relationship. A one-way arrangement built entirely on my generosity and his expectations. "I need time to prepare," I said quietly. "Maybe next month." "Next month." Ethan laughed, sharp and mocking. "We are already driving, Richard. Already committed. You would not want to disappoint the kids, would you? Laura has been telling them about Uncle Richard's fancy beach house for weeks." "Uncle Richard?" "Not Grandpa Richard. Not even just Richard. Uncle, like I was some distant relative obligated to provide entertainment and lodging on demand." My palm was slick with sweat as I held the phone. "Please be reasonable," I said. 3 weeks is a long time, especially with 15 people. "Stop being dramatic," he replied. "Family helps family. That is what you taught me, remember?" His smugness made my stomach churn. "Besides, what is the point of having all that money if you do not share it with the people who matter?" The people who matter. I closed my eyes and saw my daughter's face. Her name was Sarah. She had been his wife, the only bridge between us, and cancer had taken her 3 years earlier. I wondered what she would think if she could hear this conversation. I wondered what she would say about her husband's tone, his demands, and his complete lack of basic respect. "Just have everything ready when we get there," Ethan said. We are bringing beer, so clear out space in your refrigerator. Oh, and Laura wants your main bedroom. It has the best ocean view, right? We will take that one. My bedroom. The sanctuary I had imagined for decades, with its private balcony overlooking the endless water. The room where I planned to finally rest and enjoy what 4 decades of careful planning had earned me. The main bedroom is perfect, he said confidently. See you in 35 minutes. Do not make us wait outside. The call ended. I stood frozen in the sunlit kitchen, staring at the silent phone as if it were evidence from a crime scene. Outside, seagulls wheeled over the waves, their cries blending with the steady rush of the surf. This house was supposed to be my paradise, my reward after a lifetime of putting everyone else first. My hand still trembled as I lowered the phone. 35 minutes. 15 people. 3 weeks. The wine glass I had been unpacking caught the afternoon light and scattered faint rainbows across the marble surface. It was delicate and beautiful, and painfully fragile, much like the peace I thought I had finally earned. The phone slipped from my fingers and landed softly on the counter. My legs felt weak as I walked into the living room, passing walls still bare of the artwork I had collected over the years. Everything remained boxed up. My life felt suspended between the past and a future I had hoped would be calm and quiet. A framed photo of Sarah smiled at me from the mantel. It was the first thing I had unpacked because I needed her with me in this new place. I picked it up, my hands shaking, and studied her warm eyes and gentle smile. 3 years had passed since cancer took her, yet the ache felt just as sharp. Dad, Ethan is really trying to find work. Her voice echoed in my memory. Could you help us just this once? Just this once. Those words had become the repeating refrain of my relationship with Ethan Carter. I sank into the leather reading chair I had positioned to face the ocean, Sarah's photo resting in my lap. Sunlight flooded the room, but my thoughts drifted back to darker memories. The first emergency had come 6 months after their wedding. Ethan's startup had collapsed, leaving him jobless and drowning in credit card debt. I had transferred $18,000 from my retirement savings, watching my carefully planned timeline shift forward by half a year. You are so generous, Dad, Sarah had whispered that night over dinner. Ethan appreciates it, even if he does not always show it. But he never showed it. Not when I paid $45,000 for his graduate business degree, spread over 2 long years. Not when I paid their mortgage down payment because Ethan's credit score was too poor to qualify for a reasonable interest rate. That time it was $60,000, money I had originally set aside for my own dream home fund. I ran my fingers through my gray hair as the familiar pattern resurfaced in my mind. Every few months, there was always another emergency, another supposed crisis. Sarah's medical bills during her cancer treatments had been real and unavoidable. I had handed over $85,000 without hesitation, grateful for any chance to fight for her life. Yet even then, Ethan somehow managed to make it about himself. He complained constantly about the stress and how it was hurting his job performance. As the ocean waves crashed steadily below the villa, my thoughts were interrupted by the memory of Ethan's voice at Sarah's funeral reception. At least now we won't have all those medical bills hanging over us. My stomach had twisted violently that day. I remembered standing beside my daughter's casket while he casually networked with mourners, shaking hands and chatting like it was a business event. Even grief, it seemed, was just another inconvenience for him to manage. After Sarah died, I truly believed the requests would finally stop. I assumed Ethan would steady himself, find his footing, and build something on his own. Instead, the demands intensified. There were car repairs once his warranty expired. Property taxes he claimed he forgot to budget for. Laura's engagement ring upgrade because she deserved something nicer. I tried not to keep score, but the numbers added up in my head anyway. $327,000 over 6 years. Enough to buy a comfortable home in most American cities. Enough to guarantee a stress-free retirement. Enough to stop the financial anxiety that still woke me at 3 in the morning, despite all my careful planning. Slowly, I stood up and placed Sarah's photo back on the mantel. Then I walked into my study. The ocean view from that room had sold me on the house in the first place. Endless blue water stretched to the horizon, promising calm and clarity. Instead, my reflection stared back at me in the glass. I saw an aging man who had spent 40 years building other people's dreams while his own quietly waited in storage boxes. The hardest part was not the money. Money could be earned again, saved again, managed differently. What hurt most was the steady erosion of respect. Over time, I had been reduced from a generous father-in-law to a guaranteed source of cash. Ethan's tone had shifted gradually from thankful to entitled, from asking to demanding. Today's phone call made everything painfully clear. He had not considered my situation, my needs, or my plans. There were only assumptions wrapped in the flimsy excuse of family obligation. 15 people were about to descend on my sanctuary like locusts, consuming what I had spent decades building. My fingers drummed against the windowsill as anger flared in my chest, a slow, burning heat I had suppressed for far too long. Sarah had always asked me to be patient with Ethan, reminding me that people expressed love in different ways. But Sarah was gone, and Ethan's version of love looked disturbingly like exploitation. The distant sound of car engines pulled me back to the present. Faint at first, then steadily growing louder. Multiple vehicles were climbing the winding coastal road that led to my villa. My 35 minutes of peace had evaporated like morning fog under the sun. I checked my watch. It was 3:15 in the afternoon. Ethan had made excellent time. Through the study window, I saw dust rising from the private road that connected my property to the highway. For vehicles, maybe 5, moving together like an organized convoy. They looked less like family arriving for a visit and more like an invading force approaching conquered land. My jaw tightened as I watched them draw closer. This was not a family visit. This was a siege. Car doors slammed one after another, the sharp sounds echoing off the villa's stone facade like gunfire. I moved from the study to the front entrance and watched through the side windows as the vehicles poured into my circular driveway. Ethan's black sport utility vehicle led the group, followed by 2 sedans and a pickup truck piled high with coolers, beach gear, and enough luggage for a month-long stay. 15 people. He had not been exaggerating. The front door felt solid beneath my palm as I gripped the handle, grounding myself for what was about to happen. Through the decorative glass, I watched Ethan step out of his vehicle like a general surveying newly claimed territory. He wore designer sunglasses despite the growing shadows, and that confident, arrogant stride I had come to despise over the years. Laura climbed out of the passenger side, her blonde hair whipping in the ocean breeze as she immediately pulled out her phone to start recording. "Oh my gosh, you guys, look at this place," she shouted. "It is like a resort." I opened the door before anyone could ring the bell, hoping to preserve at least a shred of control. That hope vanished instantly. "What is up, old man?" Ethan said cheerfully. "How do you like our surprise?" He brushed past me into the foyer without waiting for an invitation, his eyes already scanning the interior like he was taking inventory. "Laura, look," he called out. "There's the hot tub I told you about." "I told you on the phone I am not ready for guests," I said, but my words were swallowed by the chaos as the rest of the group poured through the door. A man I recognized as Derek, one of Ethan's old college roommates, let out a low whistle. "Man, this guy has serious money," he said. "Why not share it with family, right?" Megan, Laura's sister, pushed inside carrying 2 oversized suitcases. "This place is perfect for our vacation," she said excitedly. "The kids are going to love that pool." "Kids?" That was news to me. "Stop being so dramatic, Richard," Ethan said. He had already reached the living room, his wet sandals leaving sandy footprints across my imported Italian marble. "Family helps family. You taught me that, remember?" More people streamed in. Some faces unfamiliar, others I vaguely remembered from Sarah's funeral. Tyler, someone's boyfriend, hauled in a beer-filled cooler like he was arriving at a college party. Two women I had never seen before were already debating bedroom assignments, as if I were invisible. "Excuse me," I tried to say, my voice barely cutting through the rising noise. "Could everyone please?" "Oh my gosh, you all have to see this kitchen," Laura squealed, already heading deeper into my home. Laura had already discovered the gourmet kitchen I had spent months planning down to the smallest detail. She stood in the center of it with her phone raised, live streaming to her social media followers as if the space belonged to her. "We are staying at my father-in-law's incredible beach house," she said brightly. "Just look at this view." Father-in-law. The phrase scraped against my nerves like sandpaper. Ethan had never called me dad, not once, not even when Sarah was still alive. I had always been Richard to him, deliberately distant, carefully kept at arm's length. But Laura had no problem claiming the family title when it benefited her image. Someone found my sound system and cranked up loud, thumping music that rattled through the house. Bags, coolers, and backpacks appeared everywhere, dumped in the foyer, stacked against my spotless walls, and spread through the rooms like territorial markers. My sanctuary was being claimed in real time. "Brian," I said automatically before correcting myself. "Ethan, we need to talk about this." "Later, old-timer," he replied without slowing down. "Right now, we need to get everyone settled." He headed straight toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms, a procession of strangers trailing after him. "Laura and I will take the primary suite, obviously," he announced. "Derek and Natalie can have the ocean view guest room. Megan, you and Tyler take the one with the balcony." I stepped directly in front of him, blocking access to the bedroom wing. "The primary bedroom is not available," I said firmly. "That is my private space." Ethan laughed, sharp and dismissive. He put his hand on my shoulder, not kindly, but with the casual arrogance of someone moving an inconvenience out of the way. "Come on, Richard. Do not be selfish. We drove 4 hours to get here. Laura specifically wants the room with the best view for her morning yoga videos." His touch felt intrusive, violating. I stepped back, but he pushed past me anyway. Leading his entourage down the hallway, I had walked alone for only one peaceful week. My hallway, my house, paid for with my money and decades of sacrifice. "This is perfect," Laura's voice echoed from my bedroom. "The lighting in here is amazing for content." Content. My master suite was being turned into a social media backdrop. Back in the living room, Derek had opened a cooler and was handing out beers without asking anyone. Megan was dragging my furniture into new positions to create better conversation flow. Somewhere outside, a child I had not even known was coming sprinted across the pool deck in dripping swimwear, leaving dark wet footprints across limestone tiles I had imported from Portugal at enormous expense. The invasion was complete. In less than 10 minutes, my peaceful villa had become a chaotic vacation rental. My careful organization was erased by entitled guests who treated my generosity like an obligation. I stood in my own foyer feeling like an outsider, watching strangers occupy spaces I had dreamed about for decades. The ocean view was still stunning, but now it framed a scene of occupation instead of peace. Ethan emerged from my bedroom, wearing a satisfied grin. "This is going to be the best 3 weeks ever," he said. "Laura is already planning a housewarming party for tomorrow night. Hope you do not mind." She invited a few more people from her yoga studio. A few more people. My jaw tightened until it ached. This was not a family visit. This was a hostile takeover, and I was being reduced from homeowner to unpaid staff in my own paradise. Laura stepped out of my master bathroom as if she owned it. A white towel was wrapped around her damp hair, and water droplets trailed behind her across my marble floor. She carried her designer suitcase with complete confidence, already mentally rearranging my private space. "Excuse me," I said, planting myself firmly in the doorway with my arms crossed. This room is off limits. She stopped, clearly surprised that I had not backed down. Oh, come on, Rick, she said casually. We already talked about this. The lighting in here is perfect for my morning routine videos. No, I said. The word came out sharper than I intended. Everyone needs to leave. Now. Her blue eyes widened with practiced innocence. She shifted the suitcase to one hand and put the other on her hip, a pose I recognized from countless online photos. Rick, honey, we are family. Why are you being so hostile? Ethan appeared behind her in the hallway, drawn by the raised voices. His expression hardened when he saw me blocking access to what he already considered his territory. Richard, move, he ordered. We have been driving for hours. This is my house, I said, my voice strengthening with each word. And I want all of you to leave immediately. Ethan laughed again, cruel and dismissive. Your house? He said. Seriously? Did you forget everything you owe our family? He stepped closer, invading my space deliberately. Did you forget who the real victim is here? The real victim, after more than $300,000. After 6 years of constant financial drain. After sacrificing my retirement security and my daughter's inheritance. Somehow, in his twisted version of reality, I was the one in debt. I do not owe you anything, I said. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with years of suppressed rage. This conversation is over. Laura tried to slip past me with her suitcase, assuming my resistance was performative. I shifted fully into her path. She stumbled backward with a startled gasp. Rick, that is incredibly rude. The disturbance drew others from around the house. Derek appeared with a beer in hand. Tyler followed, carrying beach towels like prizes. Megan came out of the guest bathroom with half her makeup done. Someone turned down the music, and suddenly the entire group was staring at us. Dude, what is your problem? Derek said, his tone lazy and entitled. We are not damaging anything. You are trespassing, I said, meeting their eyes one by one. All of you. Ethan put his hand on my shoulder again, heavy with patronizing familiarity. Sarah would be ashamed of how selfish you have become, old man. That touch, unwanted, disrespectful, meant to diminish me, snapped something deep inside. I wrenched myself free with enough force to send him stumbling backward. Do not touch me, I said sharply. The tone in my voice was unfamiliar even to me, cold and absolute. Several people stepped back without realizing it. And do not ever use my daughter's name to justify your greed. Laura's lower lip began to tremble, slipping instantly into a performance I had seen many times before whenever she wanted something expensive or advantageous. Daddy Rick, she said softly, we just wanted to spend time with you. We honestly thought you would be happy to share your beautiful home with family. Daddy Rick. The nickname made my skin crawl. This was the woman who married my daughter's widower, who moved into the apartment I helped furnish, who wore Sarah's jewelry at her wedding. She believed sugary endearments could erase the sheer audacity of what she was doing. Happy? I asked, gesturing around the house they had destroyed in less than 30 minutes. You expect me to be happy about strangers taking over my bedroom, digging through my kitchen, and treating my home like a private resort? We are not strangers, Megan protested. We are Ethan's friends. That basically makes us family. Basically family. Apparently, that phrase granted unlimited access to my life, my money, and my peace. Ethan sensed the mood turning and stepped in, switching tactics. Look, Richard, I get that you are overwhelmed, he said calmly. Moving is stressful, but we are already here. Plans were made. Turning everyone away now would cause serious problems. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Serious problems? I asked. For whom? Your friends who drove 4 hours expecting a free vacation? Laura, who already promised her followers exclusive content from a luxury villa? Or you, who presented yourself as the generous family man offering access to your wealthy father-in-law's property? The only problem, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline rushing through me. is 15 people who believe they can occupy someone else's home without permission. Without permission? Ethan snapped, his mask finally cracking. After everything this family has been through? After everything you have put us through with your expectations and control? Everything I had put them through. 6 years of writing checks, covering emergencies, propping up their lifestyle. And somehow, I was the villain. Tyler stepped forward, the smell of beer heavy on his breath. Look, Pops, maybe you should relax. We will clean up after ourselves. No harm done. Pops. Another casual insult from a stranger drinking my beer in my hallway. The group began to close ranks. Apologies faded, replaced by defensiveness. 15 people against one man in his own home. They had spent the entire drive here assuming I would surrender, planning a 3-week vacation around my expected compliance. Ethan leaned in closer, lowering his voice into the tone he always used when issuing ultimatums. Think carefully about what you do next, Richard. Some decisions cannot be undone. Some relationships do not survive being broken. There it was. A naked threat disguised as concern for family unity. Cross us, and we disappear forever. As if their presence in my life was a gift rather than a burden I had carried for years. I looked at their faces, entitled, impatient, already preparing to rewrite this story with me as the selfish villain. In their minds, I was the unreasonable wealthy relative who had forgotten his assigned role in their hierarchy of need. Standing there in my own hallway, defending the door to my own bedroom, something finally became clear. Some relationships were already broken. Some had never been real at all. The question was not whether I could afford to lose them. The question was whether I could afford to keep them. Ethan's threat lingered in the air like smoke after a fire, toxic and impossible to ignore. 15 faces stared at me, waiting for surrender. They had driven 4 hours expecting obedience, not resistance. You are right about one thing, I said, stepping away from the bedroom door. Some decisions cannot be undone. I turned and walked deliberately toward my study, pulling my phone from my pocket. Behind me, Laura's voice rose in exaggerated panic. Where are you going? We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults. From a woman who had spent the last hour photographing herself in my bathroom for social media. I heard Ethan mutter to Derek. He is finally coming to his senses. Probably calling his lawyer to change his will or something dramatic. The study door felt solid and reassuring as I shut it and turned the lock. This room was my refuge. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, engineering texts, the heavy oak desk where I had planned my retirement with care and discipline. Outside the window, the Atlantic Ocean stretched endlessly, indifferent to human entitlement. I dialed 911. 911. What is your emergency? The operator's calm professionalism steadied me. I need police assistance, I said. There are people in my home who are refusing to leave after being told repeatedly. Sir, are you in immediate physical danger? Outside the study door, I heard urgent whispers and shuffling footsteps. They were regrouping, plotting their next move. Not yet, I answered. But they are trespassing and refusing to leave my property. Can you confirm this is your legal residence? Yes, I am the homeowner. I purchased the property last month. I can provide documentation. The deed sat in my desk drawer, official proof that suddenly felt invaluable. A heavy knock slammed against the study door. Richard, Ethan called, forcing cheer into his voice. Come on, let us talk this out calmly. Sir, how many individuals are involved? The operator asked. 15, I replied. They arrived without invitation about an hour ago and will not leave. The knocking intensified. Laura's voice joined in, high and falsely sweet. Daddy Rick, please do not do anything crazy. We can work this out. Officers are being dispatched to your location, the operator said. Please remain in a secure area until they arrive. Yes, I replied. I am in my study with the door locked. The relief in my voice surprised me. After an hour of being dismissed and outnumbered, Someone was finally treating my situation as legitimate. Estimated arrival time is 15 to 20 minutes. Stay on the line if you feel unsafe. On the other side of the door, the whispers grew sharper and more agitated as reality finally began to sink in. I heard someone, Megan, I think, suggest that maybe everyone should just leave before the situation spiraled any further. Her voice sounded uncertain, cautious. But Ethan cut through the doubt instantly, his arrogance fully intact. He is bluffing, he said with confidence. Richard does not have the backbone for this. He will come out in 5 minutes and apologize. The backbone. After 40 years in engineering, after building a career that supported not only myself, but everyone around me, after postponing my own dreams again and again for other people's comfort, and he dared to question my backbone. Thank you, I said quietly into the phone. I understand. Officers are on the way. I ended the call and leaned back in my leather chair, feeling calmer than I had at any point that day. For the first time, I was not reacting. I was choosing. The knocking on the study door intensified, shifting from sharp raps to aggressive pounding. Open this door right now, Ethan shouted. The last trace of civility was gone. This is family business, not a police matter. But it was not family business. Family does not invade. Family does not ignore clear boundaries. Family does not threaten consequences when their exploitation is challenged. Richard, please, Laura called out. Her voice cracked with what might have been real emotion. How can you do this to us? We trusted you. They trusted me to give without limits, to absorb their problems quietly, to remain grateful for the privilege of being used. Derek joined in from the hallway. Man, this is insane. We are just trying to have a vacation. A vacation at my expense. In my home. Without my consent. The casual entitlement in his voice clarified everything. Through the study window, I watched seagulls glide above the waves, free and unburdened. For 4 decades, I had been the provider, the fixer, the dependable solution to everyone else's emergencies. When had wanting peace in my own home turned me into the villain. The pounding reached a frantic peak, then stopped abruptly. Urgent whispers replaced it. They had realized their mistake. Threatening me while the police were en route was not improving their position. Richard, Ethan called again, his tone shifting to wounded confusion. We just want to understand what is going on. Why are you so angry? Why was I angry? 6 years of financial exploitation. An hour-long home invasion. 15 strangers claiming my bedroom, drinking my beer, and planning my schedule. The question itself proved how little he understood about respect. My phone buzzed repeatedly with incoming messages. Ethan had clearly decided to apply pressure on multiple fronts. Sarah would want us together as a family. You are destroying relationships that can never be repaired. Think about the innocent people you are hurting. Innocent people. I deleted the messages without reading the rest. Footsteps moved away from the study door as the group regrouped. Through the walls, I heard heated arguments. Some wanted to leave immediately. Others insisted on standing their ground. Laura was crying again, but this time it sounded less rehearsed. 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, this nightmare would end. I had spent decades avoiding confrontation, smoothing over conflicts, and writing checks to make problems disappear. Today, for the first time, I had not surrendered. I had called for help instead. The feeling was terrifying and liberating. Outside, engines started. Some of them were cutting their losses, unwilling to deal with police questions about their vacation. But heavier footsteps remained in the hallway. Ethan and his inner circle were not retreating. Then I heard sirens in the distance. My heart raced, not with fear, but with anticipation. The sirens grew louder, slicing through the afternoon air like judgment approaching. Outside my door, whispers turned into frantic planning. Footsteps scattered in multiple directions as reality finally broke through their entitlement. Everyone just stay calm, Ethan said, forcing authority into his voice. I could hear the strain underneath. Let me handle this. It is just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. 15 uninvited guests refusing to leave someone else's home was not a misunderstanding. It was trespassing. But Ethan's worldview required him to be the reasonable one in every conflict. The doorbell rang. Not a casual tap. Not a friendly chime. A firm, professional ring that carried unmistakable authority. Through the walls, I heard people scrambling, hiding beer bottles, shoving luggage aside, trying to make the chaos look intentional and harmless. I unlocked the study door and stepped out. They had arranged themselves in the living room like they were staging an intervention. Ethan stood closest to the front door, ready to control the narrative. Laura sat on my sofa with red, swollen eyes, clutching tissues like stage props. "Good evening, officers," Ethan said smoothly as he opened the door. "There has been a family misunderstanding. My father-in-law seems to be having some kind of episode." An episode? Of course I was the problem, not the 15 people who had taken over my home. 2 officers entered. One was a middle-aged man with gray at his temples who introduced himself as Officer Harris. The other was a younger woman, Officer Delgado. The moment they stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. Ethan's confidence looked forced. Laura's tears appeared exaggerated. The disorder around them suddenly looked exactly like what it was. "Sir," Officer Harris said, addressing me directly. "Are you the homeowner who reported trespassing?" "Yes," I replied. "My name is Richard Clark. This is my property." I retrieved the deed from my study drawer, my hands steady despite the adrenaline. These individuals arrived without invitation and refused to leave. Officer Delgado scanned the room, noting the scattered luggage, empty bottles, and general disorder. "How many people are involved?" she asked. 15 when they arrived, I said. "Some may have left after hearing the sirens." Ethan stepped forward, wearing his most reasonable expression. "Officers, this is clearly a family dispute. Richard has been under a lot of stress since moving, and I think he is just overwhelmed by visitors." Officer Harris did not even look up from the deed. "Sir," he said evenly, "a family relationship does not override property rights. The homeowner has the legal authority to decide who remains on his property." That single sentence landed in the room like a physical jar. For the first time all day, someone with actual authority said exactly what I had been trying to say. This was my house. This was my decision. Laura looked genuinely stunned. "But we are family," she said. "Does that not count for anything?" Officer Delgado kept her expression neutral. "Ma'am, being related does not give you automatic access to someone else's property without consent." "Consent," Ethan repeated sharply, struggling to keep his composure. "He has been planning this villa as a family gathering place for months. We just assumed." "You assumed incorrectly," Officer Harris interrupted. He turned to me. "Mr. Clark, do you want these individuals removed from your property?" The question hovered in the air like a blade waiting to fall. 15 faces turned toward me. Some angry, some pleading. All of them finally realizing that their assumptions meant nothing under the law. "Yes," I said clearly. "I want everyone to leave immediately." The words felt like setting down a weight I had been carrying for years. No explanations. No apologies. No justification for enforcing basic boundaries in my own home. Officer Delgado addressed the group. "You have 15 minutes to gather your belongings and vacate the premises. Anyone remaining after that time will be arrested for trespassing." The scramble began instantly. Derek and Tyler moved first, grabbing their beer cooler and muttering half-hearted apologies as they rushed toward the door. Megan shot furious looks at Ethan while shoving clothes into her suitcase. Several people I barely recognized simply fled without a word. "This is ridiculous," Ethan protested as his authority collapsed in front of him. "We drove 4 hours. We made arrangements." "You made arrangements without consulting the property owner," Officer Harris replied calmly. "That does not constitute a legal reservation, sir." Laura stormed out of my master bedroom with her belongings, her movements sharp and angry. "You are going to regret this for the rest of your life, Richard." But I felt no regret, only relief. Watching strangers remove their possessions from my private spaces felt like reclaiming stolen ground. Ethan made one last attempt at manipulation as he loaded his sport utility vehicle. Sarah would be ashamed of what you have become, he spat. Selfish. Bitter. Officer Harris stepped between us immediately. Sir, you need to leave now. Any further contact with Mr. Clark could be considered harassment. The final car pulled out of my driveway just as the sun dipped toward the horizon, bathing the villa in warm gold. Officer Delgado completed her paperwork while Officer Harris explained the next steps. You will receive an incident report number for your records, he said. If they return without permission, call us immediately. Today establishes a documented pattern of trespassing. After the officers left, I stood alone in my foyer, wrapped in blessed silence. The chaos was gone. The beer bottles, the sandy footprints, the entitled voices claiming ownership of my life. My phone buzzed angrily, but I powered it off without reading a single message. For the first time in 6 years, I had said no without apologizing. I had asked for help instead of enduring abuse quietly. I had chosen my peace over their convenience. Outside, the ocean rolled in steady rhythms, washing the shoreline clean again and again. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Angry calls, social media attacks, family members choosing sides. But tonight, my home was mine again. The deadbolt clicked with finality as I watched the last police vehicle disappear down the coastal road, its tail lights fading into dusk. The incident report crinkled in my hand, official proof that I had been right, that my home was mine to control. Yet standing there alone, I felt oddly hollow instead of victorious. Silence pressed against my ears after hours of noise. No arguments. No footsteps on marble. No music spilling into rooms no one had been invited to use. Just the distant crash of waves and the soft hum of the air conditioning system. The sounds I had dreamed of. I walked through the villa like an investigator surveying a crime scene, cataloging the evidence of invasion. Empty beer cans clustered on the granite counters. Damp towel marks stained my hardwood floors. Furniture sat crooked where strangers had rearranged my carefully planned layout. In the guest bathroom, Laura's makeup still smeared my marble vanity, foundation streaks like territorial markings. The master bedroom felt violated in ways that went beyond the physical. Someone had knocked over Sarah's photo from my nightstand during their takeover of my private space. I picked up the silver frame, studying her gentle face through cracked glass. Be kind to Ethan, Dad, her voice echoed in my memory. He is hurting too. She had asked for kindness. She had never asked me to be a doormat. Standing in the room where strangers had planned to sleep for 3 weeks, I finally understood the difference. My phone buzzed relentlessly from the kitchen counter where I had abandoned it earlier. 17 missed calls. 43 messages. All from the same contact. Ethan Carter. I read them in order, watching his tone unravel from wounded confusion to open hostility. Richard, we need to talk about what happened today. You embarrassed my wife in front of our friends. That is unacceptable. Family does not call the police on family. Sarah would be disgusted. You think you won today? You have no idea what is coming. By tomorrow, everyone will know what kind of person you really are. Enjoy your empty house, old man. I set the phone down gently. The house was empty, and for the first time in years, that felt like peace. It is all you will have left. The messages kept coming, each one darker and more venomous than the last. Whatever mask Ethan had worn for the past 6 years had finally fallen away, exposing the manipulative core I had been too patient, too generous to confront sooner. Now, with an official police report documenting the trespassing and a growing chain of threatening messages saved on my phone, his true nature was creating its own trail of evidence. I poured myself 3 fingers of scotch and sank into the leather reading chair positioned perfectly to face the ocean. Outside, the sunset set the Atlantic ablaze in deep golds and streaks of crimson, the daily masterpiece I had bought this villa to enjoy in peace. Yet even that beauty felt dimmed by the weight of Ethan's threats. Had I been too harsh? The question pressed at me despite the law being clearly on my side. They were family, however fractured and dysfunctional. They were tied to Sarah's life, her friendships, her husband's new world after she was gone. By calling the police, had I burned bridges that could never be rebuilt? My phone vibrated again. Another message from Ethan. This one included a photo. Laura sat in the passenger seat of their vehicle, crying dramatically. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in dark, exaggerated lines. "Look what you did to her," the message read. "Happy now?" I deleted it without replying. Laura's tears might have been real, but so was my exhaustion after years of manipulation. So was my right to peace in my own home. So was the nearly $300,000 I had given them without ever receiving even basic respect in return. The scotch warmed my chest as I began restoring the house. Straightening chairs, wiping down counters, returning furniture to its proper place. Every small task felt like reclaiming stolen ground. Every clean surface erased another trace of their entitlement. The physical effort helped me process the emotional shock of finally saying no. But as evening slid into night, unease crept in alongside relief. Ethan's last messages did not sound like the frustrated outbursts of someone defeated. They carried certainty, intent. "You have no idea what is coming." That was not a tantrum. It was a promise. I had won the battle for my home, but something in his tone suggested the conflict was far from over. Sarah's photo smiled softly from my restored nightstand, her expression calm in the lamplight. I wondered what she would think of everything that had happened. Would she be proud that I finally stood my ground? Or would she only see broken family ties she had tried so hard to hold together? "I think you would understand," I whispered to her image. "You taught me to be generous, not foolish." My phone lit up again, Ethan's name flashing across the screen. This time, I turned it off completely, though not before catching the preview of the message. "Tomorrow, everyone will see." The threat lingered unfinished in the darkness, promising complications I could not yet imagine. Whatever Ethan was planning would arrive with the morning. For tonight, at least, my home was mine. But victory had never felt so fragile. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows when I reached for my phone the next morning to check the time. 8:47 a.m. I had slept poorly, Ethan's words echoing through restless dreams. The phone felt warm in my hand as the screen lit up, flooding me with notifications that made my stomach drop. 47 alerts from Facebook, Instagram, and text messages. My email inbox was overflowing with messages from people I had not spoken to in years. Something had happened overnight. Something big. I opened Facebook first, and Ethan's post was waiting at the very top of my feed. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "My father-in-law kicked his own family out of his house yesterday. He called the police on us like we were criminals. Money really does change people. My late wife Sarah would be heartbroken to see what her father has become. We just wanted to spend time with him at his new mansion, but apparently we are not worthy anymore. Please pray for our family during this difficult time." The post had already been shared 43 times. Comments poured in faster than I could read them. "This is heartbreaking. I cannot believe someone would treat family like this. Money corrupts people. Poor Laura and the kids." Kids. There had been no children the day before, but Ethan's story was already growing more tragic with every retelling. Laura had posted a video from their car, her eyes red, her voice shaking just enough to sound sincere. "I do not understand how someone who used to love us could turn so cold," she said. "We brought friends to meet him, to celebrate his success, and he treated us like strangers. Sarah used to say her dad was the most generous man alive. I guess she never saw this side of him." My hands trembled as I scrolled. Former neighbors, colleagues from my engineering firm, even friends of Sarah's from college, all expressing disbelief, disappointment, outrage. The story was simple, emotional, completely false. But Ethan had told it first. I tried to comment, my fingers clumsy with frustration. "This is one-sided. Ethan brought 15 people to my home without invitation or permission. When I asked them to leave, they refused. I had every legal right. Against his emotional narrative, my explanation looked cold and defensive. Replies appeared within minutes. Classic gaslighting. Richard, why are you trying to justify abandoning family? 15 people? That sounds exaggerated. Ethan responded immediately. See how he is rewriting history? This is exactly the kind of manipulation Sarah used to complain about in private. Sarah complaining about me in private. The lie was so calculated, so vicious, that it took my breath away. And yet people were believing it, sharing it, adding their own outrage. Megan shared the post with her own caption. Disgusting behavior from someone who should know better. Derek chimed in. Laura is like a daughter to me. Seeing her treated this way makes me sick. We drove 4 hours just to spend time with family. Another comment followed. Got treated like criminals just for wanting to use his pool. Rich people problems, I guess. A pool party. That was what they were calling the invasion now. According to the story spreading online, it had all been harmless. Just a simple request to use family amenities, cruelly denied by a bitter old man with more money than compassion. I sat at the kitchen table while my coffee went cold, reading comment after comment as my reputation unraveled in real time. People I had known for decades were questioning my character based entirely on Ethan's carefully constructed sob story. Former neighbors wrote about their disappointment. Friends of Sarah spoke openly about feeling betrayed, as if they had finally seen my true nature. Then I saw a message from Margaret Chen, Sarah's closest friend from college. Richard, I am shocked, she wrote. This does not sound like the man Sarah described. What happened to you? My chest tightened as I typed a private response. Margaret, there is much more to what happened. Ethan brought 15 people to my house without asking, claimed my primary bedroom, and refused to leave when I told them to. The police confirmed I had every legal right to remove them. Her reply came less than an hour later. I find it hard to believe Sarah's husband would lie about something like this. Maybe you should reflect on your own behavior instead of blaming others. The realization hit me like ice water. Ethan had weaponized Sarah's memory and their shared grief. In his version, he was the devoted widower still mourning my daughter 3 years later. I was the wealthy father-in-law who had abandoned him in his time of need, choosing money and isolation over family loyalty. Every attempt I made to defend myself only made things worse. Social media did not reward facts. It rewarded emotion. And Ethan's tearful narrative was perfectly designed for viral sympathy. My calm explanations about property rights and police reports sounded cold and petty against his performance of heartbreak. By noon, his post had been shared 87 times. Local community pages began circulating it as a human interest story about family dysfunction among the wealthy. Comment threads multiplied, each one reinforcing Ethan's version while dismissing my clarifications as excuses. I closed my laptop in frustration and stared at the wall of my study. Engineering certificates, professional awards, decades of documented achievement, community involvement, and charitable work. None of it mattered against a single manipulative social media post crafted to provoke outrage. My college diploma hung centered among the frames, the engineering degree that had taught me discipline, logic, and evidence-based problem-solving. Social media was not about truth. It was about narrative control and emotional manipulation. Those were tools I had never needed and weapons I had never learned to use. But engineering had taught me something else. Every problem has a solution if you approach it methodically. Ethan might have won the first round with superior social media tactics, but this situation would not be resolved by emotional performance. It would be settled by facts, documentation, and legal reality. I needed to stop reacting on his battlefield and start building my case on mine. Evidence, records, professional expertise. The real question was whether I could assemble the truth faster than his lies could spread. I turned away from the computer and faced my wall of achievements again. 40 years of systematic problem-solving stared back at me. Ethan understood manipulation. I understood structure. I understood how to break complex systems down into parts and expose their weaknesses. This was just another engineering challenge. Ethan's story had a fatal flaw. It was built on lies. My job was to locate the weak points and apply pressure using proof. I opened my filing cabinet with deliberate care and pulled out a thick folder labeled Family Financial Assistance, a habit left over from my engineering years when everything was documented. Inside were bank statements, canceled checks, wire transfer confirmations, and payment receipts. The real story, told in numbers instead of emotion. I spread the documents across my desk in chronological order and began calculating. Graduate business tuition, $45,000 over 2 years. Wedding expenses, $30,000 in a single month. House down payment, $60,000 when Ethan's credit could not secure reasonable terms. Sarah's cancer treatment, $85,000 in verified payments to hospitals and specialists. Car payments, credit card bailouts, emergency transfers that were never repaid. The total reached $290,000 over 6 years. This was not casual generosity between equals. It was a steady escalation of demands fueled by guilt, entitlement, and my daughter's illness. Every payment had a date. Every transfer had a purpose. Every dollar left a paper trail. Ethan had forgotten one important detail. He was dealing with an engineer who documented everything for tax planning, estate management, and accountability. His emotional online narrative would collapse under the weight of this evidence. I picked up my phone and dialed Howard Brennan, my estate attorney since Sarah's death. We had worked together on my will, trust structures, and property purchases. Our professional relationship was built on precision and documentation. Howard, it is Richard Clark, I said. I need guidance regarding family financial support that has become legally complicated. Good to hear from you, Richard, he replied. What kind of complications? My son-in-law is spreading false claims online, saying I abandoned the family, I explained. I have records showing nearly $300,000 in financial support over 6 years. No loan agreements, no repayment schedules. I treated everything as gifts. Now I need to understand my legal options. Howard paused, considering. The distinction between gifts and loans can be significant, he said. Without written agreements, recovery can be difficult. But there are alternative legal theories we can examine. Detrimental reliance, unjust enrichment, possibly others. Do you have comprehensive documentation? He asked. Yes, I said without hesitation. Bank records for every transaction. Dates, amounts, and stated purposes. I can demonstrate a clear pattern of increasing demands and a lifestyle far beyond any legitimate income. Howard exhaled slowly. That gives us something to work with. Excellent, Howard said after reviewing my summary. This kind of systematic exploitation may fall under elder financial abuse statutes, especially given the duration and the amounts involved. Let us meet Monday morning. Bring everything. I scheduled the appointment and returned to my work immediately. I built a detailed spreadsheet that laid bare the full scope of Ethan's financial dependence. His public posts complained constantly about money troubles, while my bank records showed steady transfers propping up his lifestyle. The contradiction was glaring. I opened Ethan's social media accounts and began capturing screenshots, working backward year by year. Posts asking for help with car repairs appeared during the same months I had paid his insurance premiums. Complaints about overwhelming medical expenses lined up neatly with direct payments from my accounts to his doctors. Again and again, public claims of hardship collided with private financial support. Laura's social media accounts revealed even more damaging evidence. Photographs of luxury vacations, designer clothing, high-end restaurants, weekend getaways, and lifestyle indulgences, all funded by money I had provided, while they presented themselves online as struggling, mistreated family members worthy of sympathy. By mid-afternoon, I had assembled a comprehensive file documenting 6 full years of financial manipulation, a clear timeline of payments, screenshots of contradictory online statements, side-by-side comparisons of declared income versus lifestyle expenses, evidence of long-term deception, not a misunderstanding that began yesterday. Ethan's online story painted me as a wealthy miser abandoning desperate relatives. My documentation proved the opposite. It showed a generous father-in-law systematically exploited by manipulative in-laws who had received nearly $300,000 while portraying themselves as victims. The irony was almost elegant. Ethan's greatest strength, his ability to manipulate public perception, had become his greatest weakness. Every post claiming poverty now served as evidence of deception. Every photograph of luxury purchases undermined his narrative of hardship. I organized the final documents into a thick folder and labeled it carefully in my precise handwriting. Miller Financial Recovery. This would be my opening move. Not emotional rebuttals. Not defensive online arguments. But decisive legal action backed by facts. I placed the folder into my briefcase and glanced at Sarah's photo on my desk. Her gentle smile felt reassuring, as if she understood that protecting myself was not a betrayal of her memory. It honored the thoughtful, disciplined approach to life she had always respected. "I think you would approve of this," I said quietly. "No manipulation, just truth." My phone rang from an unfamiliar number, likely another reporter chasing the family drama that was apparently becoming local gossip. I ignored it. I had real work to do. Ethan had chosen the wrong opponent. He had picked a fight with someone who solved problems for a living. Someone who documented everything. Someone who understood that lasting victories required solid foundations, not emotional theatrics. This was not revenge. This was self-protection, justice, and an end to exploitation disguised as family loyalty. The rules had changed, and for the first time, I was playing to win. Sunday morning arrived clear and deliberate. I sat at my study desk like a strategist preparing for a decisive campaign. The Miller Financial Recovery folder lay open before me, documents arranged with methodical precision. Coffee steamed beside Sarah's photograph as I reviewed 6 years of bank records, transfer confirmations, and screenshots showing Ethan's claims of poverty alongside my financial support. At 8:30 a.m., I drove downtown to Howard Brennan's office, my briefcase heavy with evidence. He had agreed to an emergency Sunday meeting after I explained how quickly Ethan's online campaign was gaining traction. Immediate legal action was necessary. "Richard, this level of documentation is exceptional," Howard said, spreading the records across his polished conference table. "Most people do not keep records like this for family assistance." 40 years in engineering taught me to document everything, I replied. I never imagined I would need it for this. Howard traced the timeline carefully. Graduate school tuition, wedding expenses, house down payment, medical bills, emergency transfers, no written agreements, no repayment schedules. "He treated you like a private bank," Howard said. "The pattern is unmistakable." It only became obvious when I organized it chronologically. I explained, sliding over my spreadsheet. The request started small. Always promises to repay once things stabilized. But his lifestyle never matched any legitimate income. Howard nodded, clearly energized. "Without loan agreements, we will pursue unjust enrichment and detrimental reliance. Your records show systematic exploitation. This is a very strong case. What are my realistic chances of recovery?" I asked. Howard smiled, sharp and confident. "With this evidence? Excellent. Ethan will not be expecting this. Most family disputes fall apart due to lack of documentation. You have built a fortress of facts." We spent 2 hours mapping strategy. Court filings scheduled for Monday morning. Service of process designed to catch Ethan off guard. Defamation counterclaims based on his false public statements. A timeline for asset discovery and enforcement. At noon, I drove to my bank's main branch carrying Howard's formal request for certified transaction records. The branch manager, Patricia Lawson, handled the request personally once she understood the legal context. "These transfer amounts are substantial," she said, reviewing 6 years of payments to Ethan's accounts. "We will provide certified copies with official authentication for court use." When the final totals were calculated, even I was surprised. $290,350. Several large payments had slipped my memory during Sarah's final months. Emergency room bills, specialist consultations, prescription costs, all paid directly from my accounts while Ethan claimed hardship online. As Patricia applied official seals and notarizations to each document, the weight of the evidence became undeniable. "These records clearly establish the pattern you described," she said. "The court will find them compelling." From the bank, I drove straight to the notary office, where every document received formal certification. By the time I returned home, my case was no longer just strong. It was unbreakable. My sworn affidavit laid everything out in clear, unemotional detail. It described Ethan's repeated promises to repay me once his business stabilized. Promises that quietly vanished as his demands grew larger and my daughter's illness became more severe. By the time I returned home that evening, I was no longer reacting emotionally. I was operating with focus. I organized the final legal package piece by piece. A chronological record of systematic exploitation, written evidence of false assurances, screenshots of social media posts that deliberately misrepresented his financial condition. Everything Ethan had assumed would be forgotten, every lie he believed would fade with time, I had preserved and cataloged. The irony was almost poetic. Ethan's greatest weapon, his ability to sway public opinion with emotional appeals, had become his undoing. Every post claiming hardship was now potential proof of fraud. Every photograph of luxury purchases directly contradicted his narrative of desperation. I placed the completed legal file into my briefcase and set my phone alarm for an early courthouse arrival. This was no longer about anger or revenge. It was about accountability, about protecting myself from future exploitation by using the proper legal channels. I looked at Sarah's photo on my desk and spoke softly to her gentle smile. "Tomorrow I fight back the right way," I said. "The way you always believed in. With preparation and integrity." My phone buzzed again with another message from Ethan. "Still waiting for your apology, old man. Family does not treat family this way." I did not reply. Ethan had no idea what was coming. While he had been playing to the crowd online, I had been constructing a legal structure that could not be shaken. Engineering had taught me that real victories required strong foundations, careful planning, and disciplined execution. Tomorrow would prove that preparation beats manipulation every time. The conflict was not over. It was simply beginning on my terms. Monday morning arrived with the precision of a project timeline. I reached the courthouse at 7:45 a.m., my briefcase heavy with documentation that would move me from defendant in the court of public opinion to plaintiff in a court of law. The filing office opened at exactly 8 a.m., and I intended to be first. "I am filing for debt recovery and defamation," I told the clerk, sliding my legal package across the counter. She reviewed the materials carefully. Howard's formatting was meticulous. Certified bank records, a notarized affidavit, a timeline analysis that read like a forensic accounting report. "This is exceptionally well prepared, Mr. Clark," she said, processing my payment and assigning a case number. "Judge Alvarez handles these matters. Given the quality of your evidence, you will likely receive an expedited hearing." Service of process was arranged immediately, while a court officer drove across town to deliver papers that would shatter Ethan's confidence. I returned home to begin the second phase. My laptop waited on the kitchen table, open to Ethan's viral post accusing me of abandoning family. It was time to replace emotion with facts. I composed my response with deliberate precision. No insults, no defensiveness, Just documentation. I have seen the recent posts regarding our family situation. Below are the documented facts. I attached screenshots of bank transfers totaling $290,350, organized chronologically with clear explanations for each payment. These funds were provided freely during difficult periods, I wrote. Recent events have changed that. I am pursuing recovery through legal channels and addressing defamatory statements in court. I published the post at 9:30 a.m., tagging every mutual friend and family member who had seen Ethan's original narrative. The response was immediate. Shock, confusion, apologies, demands for Ethan to explain the financial evidence he had conveniently omitted. Margaret Shun, Sarah's closest college friend who had questioned my character, commented almost immediately. Richard, I had no idea about the financial support. Ethan never mentioned any of this. I am sorry for judging without facts. Other comments followed rapidly. This changes everything. Why would he leave out nearly 6 years of support? That is an extraordinary amount of money. Richard was clearly generous. I spent the rest of the morning methodically contacting witnesses, neighbors who had seen the invasion unfold, Sarah's friends who now had full context, my financial advisor who had processed the large transfers, professional colleagues who could attest to my character. Each conversation added another pillar to the truth. At 11:15 a.m., my phone rang. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. It was the first time he had called instead of sending threats. You filed a lawsuit against me? He asked, his voice stripped of arrogance and edged with real panic. Richard, this is family business. We can work this out privately. Family business ended when you brought 15 strangers into my home and refused to leave, I replied calmly. Family business ended when you published lies to destroy my reputation. Those were not lies, he snapped. You abandoned us. Ethan, I said evenly. I have documentation of every dollar I gave you, every promise you made to repay, every post where you claimed poverty while spending my money. There was silence on the line, and for the first time since all of this began, I knew the truth had finally caught up with him. The court will decide what qualifies as truth. Silence stretched across the phone line. When Ethan finally spoke again, the confidence was gone. His voice sounded raw, stripped of control. What do you want? He asked. Money? I can pay some of it back. The court will determine appropriate restitution, I replied evenly. All communication goes through my attorney from this point forward. I ended the call and returned to my social media response. This time, I posted screenshots of Ethan's threatening text messages from Friday night, sent privately, side by side with his public posts calling for family unity and reconciliation. The contrast was undeniable. Privately, he threatened an older man. Publicly, he played the abandoned victim. Laura called next. Her voice shook, and for the first time, the fears sounded real rather than rehearsed. Richard, please, she said. Ethan is talking about losing the house. Losing everything. Can we not handle this like family? Laura, I said calmly. Your husband exploited my grief after Sarah's death to extract nearly $300,000. He brought 15 people into my home without permission and called police intervention abandonment. This stopped being about family the moment he chose manipulation instead of honesty. By mid-afternoon, the online narrative had completely reversed. Ethan's original post was buried beneath comments demanding explanations for the financial evidence. People who had defended him were now sharing my documentation and expressing shock at the scale of support he had hidden. Sarah's friends, who initially stood with him, began apologizing to me and questioning what else he had lied about. Around 2 in the afternoon, Ethan's social media accounts went silent. No replies, no explanations, no attempts to counter the evidence. The man who had dominated the narrative for days had been neutralized by facts. At 3:30 p.m., my attorney called. The judge has reviewed your filing and Ethan's response, Howard said. He is requesting settlement discussions through counsel. Richard, he knows he is finished. This level of documentation in a family financial dispute is extraordinary. That evening, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. It was Ethan. His voice was barely recognizable. The confident manipulator was gone, replaced by someone facing consequences for the first time. "Richard," he said quietly, "I need to talk. Can we meet? Please." The desperation was unmistakable. "Meetings belong to the past," I replied. "Back when I believed family loyalty meant unlimited tolerance for exploitation. All communication goes through my attorney. You have his contact information." I ended the call and stepped onto my deck. The sun was sinking over the ocean, painting the water in deep oranges and purples. Tomorrow would bring more legal steps, more confirmation that preparation defeats manipulation. The war was effectively over. Ethan had brought a social media campaign to a legal documentation fight and learned what lies look like when confronted with certified bank records. Justice was not coming. It had arrived. Friday morning arrived clear and calm. I entered the courthouse with steady confidence, Howard walking beside me carrying additional documentation we had compiled during the week. Across the hallway, Ethan sat slumped next to an overworked public defender. The designer's sunglasses were gone. The arrogant posture had collapsed. 5 days earlier, he had controlled the narrative, commanded sympathy, and treated my home like conquered territory. Now he looked like what he had always been beneath the performance. A middle-aged man who built his life on someone else's generosity and was finally facing consequences. Judge Alvarez reviewed the case file carefully. "Mr. Clark," she said, "your documentation is exceptionally thorough. Mr. Carter, your counsel indicates you wish to avoid trial and pursue settlement." Ethan's attorney attempted a weak defense. "Your Honor, my client maintains these were family gifts provided freely during a period of shared grief." The judge raised a hand and held up printed screenshots. "Counselor, your client's own statements contradict that claim. Here, he describes financial hardship while bank records show systematic support. Here, he promises repayment once business stabilizes. Later, he claims the funds were unconditional gifts." Howard presented our timeline. 6 years of escalating demands. Repeated promises to repay. A lifestyle sustained entirely by my funding while publicly claiming poverty. Displayed chronologically, the pattern was impossible to deny. Additionally, Judge Alvarez continued, the social media campaign omitted material facts and attempted reputational harm. That constitutes unjust enrichment and defamation. Ethan's attorney requested a recess. 20 minutes later, they returned with a proposal. $150,000 in restitution over 3 years. A mandatory public retraction on all platforms where false statements were posted. Immediate cessation of all defamatory communication. "Mr. Clark," the judge asked, "do you find this acceptable?" I looked at Ethan's defeated expression and heard Sarah's voice in my memory. "Dad, he is hurting too." But Sarah had never asked me to sacrifice myself. She asked for kindness, not exploitation. "I accept the settlement, Your Honor," I said. Accountability does not require cruelty. It requires boundaries. The judge entered the agreement into the official record. Ethan had 30 days to begin payments or face asset seizure, and his public retraction would be visible to everyone who had seen his lies. For the first time in years, the story ended not with manipulation, but with truth. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt Sarah's presence more clearly than I had at any point since losing her. Not the distorted version Ethan had used to manipulate sympathy, but her true spirit. The woman who was generous without being careless, compassionate without being blind, loving yet fiercely protective of the people she cared about. That was the Sarah I carried with me as I drove home. Back at my villa, I posted a short update online. I chose calm dignity over victory laps or bitterness. Our family legal matter has been resolved through the appropriate legal process. I appreciate the support shown and am focusing on moving forward with honesty, clarity, and mutual respect. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah's friends expressed relief that the truth had finally surfaced. People who had initially sided with Ethan sent private apologies, admitting they had reacted emotionally without knowing the facts. Even a few of the people who had shown up that Friday reached out quietly, confessing they had felt uncomfortable with the invasion but had not known how to speak up in the moment. That evening, Ethan's required public retraction appeared. It was brief and legally precise, acknowledging that his earlier statements were inaccurate and incomplete. The commanding online presence he once wielded so confidently was now reduced to court-mandated correction. Watching it unfold felt less satisfying than I expected, and more final. Later that night, my phone rang again. This time, it was my nephew David, Sarah's cousin, someone I had not heard from in months. "Uncle Richard," he said warmly, "I saw what happened. Honestly, I always wondered how Ethan afforded that lifestyle. I am really sorry you went through all of this, but I am glad you stood up for yourself." "Thank you, David," I replied. "And you are always welcome to visit, with an invitation and dates that work for both of us." He laughed, genuinely. "That sounds perfect. How about next weekend? I would love to see your new place." I checked my calendar and smiled at the simplicity of it, being asked instead of ordered, consulted instead of invaded. "Next weekend works great," I said. "I will have the guest room ready." As evening settled in, I sat on my deck with a glass of wine, watching the waves move steadily towards shore. My phone remained silent. No threats, no demands, no manufactured emergencies designed to extract money or control. For the first time since buying the villa, it truly felt like mine. Not just legally mine because my name was on the deed, but emotionally mine, protected by boundaries I had finally learned to enforce. My generosity had not been destroyed by saying no. It had been clarified and strengthened, reserved now for relationships rooted in respect instead of entitlement. Sarah's photo rested on the side table beside me. I lifted my glass slightly toward her smile. "I think you would approve," I said quietly. I finally learned the difference between kindness and being taken advantage of. The tide rolled in and out, washing the shoreline clean again and again, carrying away debris and leaving space for something new. 6 years of systematic exploitation had ended, not through rage or revenge, but through preparation, documentation, and the understanding that wisdom must guide generosity. Ethan would make his payments, rebuild his life through honest effort, and perhaps learn that relationships require balance, not manipulation. As for me, I would enjoy the retirement I had earned. I would welcome family who respected boundaries. I would remain generous, just no longer careless. Justice had been delivered. Peace had returned. And for the first time in years, I looked toward tomorrow without hesitation, only hope.